So one of the first things you're going to want to figure out is what kind of container you'd like to use for your fairy garden. There's a lot of really neat things out there that can be repurposed and used as containers. This slide shows a few things that I've used at my house. This is a chicken waterer, which I think is really fun, and I filled that with soil a couple years ago, and I usually plunk a few plants in that each year. This old bunt pan was one that I found at the flea market, and I added some holes to the bottom. And I usually grow Johnny jump ups in that every year. And you can see one little guy came up on his own over here. It's full of weeds. Otherwise, I haven't replanted it yet for this season. This old colander is a neat idea. It already has drainage holes in it. So all I had to do was line it with some landscape fabric, and then I could put soil and plants in it. And old chairs that have planters in place of a seat, I find really interesting as well. And then a quick internet search brought up a whole bunch of other fun ideas. Old drawers, the bathtub is a fun idea. I'd never seen a suitcase used before as a container for a garden, which I thought turned out really neat. Couple things to consider though are the size of your container. So the smaller the size, the fewer the plants and fewer accessories that you can fit in it. Larger containers, you can put more in, but then they become less movable. So you're going to want to think a little bit about where you think you want to put the container and if you're going to need to move it once it's in place. But regardless, once you've figured out your container and what you might like to use, there's a few things you want to make sure that you have in place and a certain way to line things up within it. So this is a cross section of a garden planter, and we're going to start at the bottom and move our way up. At the very bottom, you definitely want to make sure you have holes in it, and that's for drainage. So if you water the plant or if it gets rained on and it has too much water in it, that extra water needs to be able to escape. If it can't escape, it will kill your plant. So you definitely want to have holes at the bottom of the container. And then I always like to put a layer of extra drainage material in there. This picture uses packaging peanuts. I prefer natural things like pine cones or large chunks of wood mulch or even rocks or gravel. It does make it heavier, but I like the more natural, not the packaging peanuts. What you're doing, the idea here is that you're creating extra channels for water to run down. So if it gets a lot of water all at once, that water is going to sit in there until it has time to come out the holes at the bottom. By adding this extra drainage layer here, it gives the water a place to hang out until it has time to run out the holes at the bottom. And the soil is going to go over that, but you're going to need some sort of a layer in here to separate the soil from your drainage layer. Otherwise, all of your soil is eventually going to travel down and fill up those cracks and crevices. Landscape fabric works really well for this, or burlap could work as well. And then you're going to want a nice thick layer of garden soil or container soil. And this will depend on what kind of plants you're putting in your container. So succulents and cacti like a different kind of soil mix than something like herbs or flowers. So make sure you pick out the right kind of mix for the plants that you're going to use. And give extra consideration if you're growing food in here. You want to make sure it's a nice, rich, and there's a lot of soil because this plant is going to continue to grow all season long and it's going to need to draw up nutrients. And then you'll add in your plant materials.